Hello. As it's February, the WI celebrates the Show the Love campaign with green hearts, and lots of WIs make green hearts either to give out in their community, hang in their windows, use in order to promote a conversation about climate change. I like this one because it's very grassroots. We're all doing, we can do this in our own WIs. I'm going to be teaching 3 or 4 WIs to do this live. So we have to remember that we are using up scraps of things that we've got. The idea of Show the Love is not to go out and buy loads of expensive stuff. So you can do this any way you like. And today we're going to make a little bookmark. So our bookmark is a felt bookmark here. And in case you're wondering how it works as a bookmark, we have got the book here with a fantastic title for our director. And it's going to just tuck into the corner there. You might want to think about the decoration and the practicality of not making it too thick when you're putting it onto your book and what you're going to use in decorating. It does, however, also form a little pocket. And if you wish to do something else with it, if you don't want it as a bookmark, you could add a ribbon handle on here and hang them in a tree or whatever you're going to do. I did see that some people, when I advertised this, were talking about doing a Galentine's night, which I know some people do. So of course, if you don't want it green, you can change the colour up whatever you like. And if you wanted to go traditional Valentine's, or if your WI was called Spa Sweethearts, so you did heart related things anyway, you might want to go for the traditional colours. Either way, it's the same thing. So what we're going to need is some felt. So you can adjust the size. I'm going to tell you a size, but adjust it for your things. And we've got some green felt here, left over from other projects or bought specially or whatever you're going to do. Some green felt. The accoutrements on the top of there can be anything that you've got left. They might be cut out using your die cutting machine. They might be things that you've got left over from something else. Tiny little scraps being used up. Buttons, all kinds of things like that. I've collected a load of green ones together just for us to use today, but could be anything. We need some thread. I'm a cross stitcher, so I have a lot of this kind of thread left, but really any sort of thread you can adapt it with, any kind, if you've got this kind of thread or this kind of thread, whatever you want. We're going to need a pencil. I've got a felt tip pen, but you don't need that. Pencil, scissors, card, and something circular to draw around like a mug. Doesn't have to be a Beatles mug, it can be any kind of mug. Okay, and needle and thread. Obviously, I said thread, so we obviously need a needle to sew these things together. What you don't need is any previous experience of sewing. That's absolutely fine. So the first thing we need to do is make our heart-shaped template. Now, we've talked about heart-shaped templates lots of times in my drawing club, in lots of the other things, but hearts are all different, and today we need a heart with a right angle. So I'm going to flip onto the other camera and show you how to create your template before we start, because it's a very specific heart in order for it to work. Okay, so I'll see you on the other camera and I'll show you that. So here's a little bit of a closer up on the one that we've got there and there. So the first thing we have to do is make the template for our particular type of heart. So I've got a piece of card here. It's A4 card and it already has a right angle on it. If you don't already have a right angle, find something square, or obviously a protractor if you've got one, but find something square that you can measure, because you want this perfect right angle, which comes with something. So you're going to measure up 8 centimetres from this bottom corner here where you've got it, and you're going to make a mark. I'm going to do it in felt tip pen just so you can see it, and I'm going to make it a little bit larger than necessary, but a tiny little mark is all you need there so that you can see, and it's 8 centimetres up. Okay, that's our key measurement. We're then going to do 8 centimetres along as well. Same thing, 8 centimetres along here, and make a mark, and a small mark is absolutely fine. I then want us to go into this tiny corner here and measure 8 centimetres along. You are trying to have a 45-degree angle here, but don't stress yourself about making it absolutely perfect. As long as it's about halfway, you imagine where that halfway is. 8 centimetres up and then make another little mark. I'm going to make it an X so you can see it, but a small little one would be absolutely fine for you. Okay, just a little dot as long as you can see it. Then you need to get your mug and you need to make the points that are going to go along. Okay, so we're going to take from here to here to make the circle top part of our heart. So just rearrange your mug so that it's on where you can see. And I realise you can't see that, so I'm just going to take it off, and then you can see that I have drawn a circle from there to there. That was the curve of the mug when I was doing it like that. And so you're going to, if I just do it a little bit in from there, you'll be able to see that that's what I'm doing, just moving that and creating it there. So you put your mug so that you have now got your two halves coming around like that. More or less the same, approximately the same, meeting there as they go along. I don't think that's exactly meeting in the centre there, is it? Maybe that needed to be a bit more like that as it's going. And then we're going to cut that out and have our heart-shaped template. The important thing being that we have a right angle here. So this is a right angle. Do you remember at school that little symbol that meant right angle? That's the right angle there. Okay, and if these two don't look curved enough from your mug and you don't have enough of a valley in between, cut an extra one in now when you're seeing it. So you now have this template. So now we have our heart template with a right angle. So we now need to use that to cut out our fabric. So you need to get your piece of felt and cut it out. Now, if you're a child in a class, you put it there and waste it all, because that happens all the time. Obviously, it's a lot better to put it right in the corner. And if you've bought a piece of felt like I have here, you've already got that right angle. So tuck it into there and cut out your two exactly the same hearts. Now, if you wish to adjust the valley of your heart, this part here, if you want to make it a bit deeper at this point, do that, that's absolutely fine. Just make sure it's exactly the same on both of the ones that you've used. So you've then got two felt green hearts like this. And then comes the fun bit of deciding to decorate it. So you've got loads of different ways to decorate it. You can sew the name actually on there, and you could put that and talk about something particularly in your environment if that's relevant to you. We can use buttons, we can use shapes, we can use all kinds of things. But what we need to do is decorate it before we sew them together. So we're going to design it by putting it down and putting things on it. Then we're going to sew our things on like that. And then we're going to sew it together. So we've got adorning first, both sides if you want to, and then sewing together. Okay, I'll see you on the other camera to show you how we're going to create that writing and how we're going to sew them together. So now we're most definitely at the fun bit. We've got our pieces of felt, and now we're going to design what we're going to do with them. So here, these are just these little buttons from shirts, men's shirts that you have, or women's shirts for that matter, that sometimes you have hundreds of them, they're not all matching. I used my die cutting machine to cut out these ones while we're doing that. You don't need to get every single thing sewn on absolutely like all the way around the edges. You can just do little stitches if you like. You can do all kinds of things. I'm just going to show you a couple of the little sewing things so that you can see how we do it. So here's our heart sitting here like this. And then we're going to get a few of the patterns. So what do we fancy using to go on top of here? So we need to use one that's going to show up really nicely. So I think I might actually go on to this one and do this one, because you can see that nice and clearly. Now we can do little stab stitches all the way along there so that we can see how that's going to be. Now I'm using 2 threads of the embroidery thread for this, 2 strands of the embroidery thread for this, because it doesn't need to be really thick. So I've had a knot in the bottom and I'm coming up from the back and I'm just putting a little stitch. Because I'm keeping in green, you're hardly seeing it. Just a tiny little stitch in there that you can hardly see to hold it. If you want to make more of a feature of your sewing, use a contrasting thread there. So after you've done that one, you'll pull round onto the next petal. The other alternative is to use that little stabbing stitch going all the way around the edge. Really, really neatly like that. Once you've done that, if you want to put something in the centre, you can start to build it up, but you don't necessarily have to sew every single bit down when you're going into the centre there. So let's find something that we're going to put in the middle of this one. I've got a nice little button there that's come off something, and I think that looks really nice just where it is. So in holding those together, I'm going to come up through the middle with my needle and then put my button on top. If you have a 4-hole button, you can choose whether you want to put an X in the middle or whether you want it to be 2 lines. And just go back down. And you sew over as many times as you think you're going to need when you're doing that. So as many times as you think going around until it's secure. So we have all of these different little things to do. Some of these have been bought already like this. Some of them are buttons left over. Some of them have been cut. Some of them have these lovely things like that. Anything that you want to do to put them together so that we can fix those two things. Now I'm going to show you on the red one here. You can choose what you're doing with how you're going to put it together, whether you want to have a red one and a red one or whatever. But we're going to sew it together. Oh, no, before we sew it together, I've just realised I was going to show you how to write Show the Love on the back of it. Okay, where's my one with Show the Love on the back of it? Here we are. So again, I've just come through with the knotted thread on the back and come through, and you're just going to use backstitch to freehand this. None of the words Show the Love are particularly long, so you can squeeze them on and just do it. This is pretty well practice because I'm used to sewing things like Felicity, which is a bit difficult to fit in, as is Spa Sweethearts actually, my WI, so it's quite tricky to fit those things in, but Show the Love is not that difficult. So it's like that, just little back stitches to write with, and then you end up with the words written like that. So you could use that for anything you want. You could put the little hashtag on if that's what you want as well. It is, of course, needing some explanation sometimes, this, when you're giving them to people. So you might want a little piece of paper hidden inside explaining what the Show the Love campaign is all about. So then we decide we're going to sew them together. So there are 2 ways of sewing them together. You can just use a running stitch, and that's what I've got on this one. And if you're a beginner sewer or you just want to do something quickly, that is really good. So we're just going to start there and go in, out. I'm going through both pieces of felt at once here. In, out, all the way along so that you can see the stitches. Running stitch is perfectly good. If you wanted to go back again with a different coloured thread in the spaces in between and use a kind of couching stitch as you go along, that would look really good. I actually don't think that's couching stitch. I think that might be a fancy back stitch, but in between, if you want to do that. The other thing you might want to do is do blanket stitch, and this is blanket stitch on the edge here. Don't be intimidated by blanket stitch because it's really easy. I'm going to show you on this same one. So the first bit of blanket stitch always looks a bit funny, so I'm going to go over and come underneath, so not a long ways stitch but a up ways stitch, and then just before you pull it all the way through, tuck your needle inside. Now the first one's going to look funny because you're going to fix it when you come all the way around again. So you're going to go like that, and then before that last loop's gone, you're going to tuck your thread in between. And that's just going to create your blanket stitch as you go along. When you've gone all the way through, oh, I forgot to do that last bit there, pull that out. When you've gone all the way round and you're joining to your last one, you can just pull the first one up a little bit if you come all the way round. Of course, in this one you're not going to be, because you're going to be coming along like that, in which case just ignore that first one, it'll be right in the corner. So you're either using a running stitch, which is lovely and looks really good, or going back over it, or using the blanket stitch to stick that together.
Mum!
Looks like it's time for me to put my book down and go and do something else. Luckily I have a Show the Love bookmark that I can tuck into here so that I won't lose my page. Looks like it's there, and you can show the love too. I hope you enjoy making them, and I'll see you for more crafting fun soon. Bye!